Here we are in Ubuntu. Let's try to call open and pass the folder and see what happens. Couldn't get a file descriptor referring to the console. That's not a super user experience. So what are we going to do? Well, like I said, we need to run a different open command on Linux, a different one on OS X, and a different one on Windows. Now, there are a variety of ways to determine what basic platform you're working on. We could go and import the OS module and say os.name, and it'll say POSIX for Linux and NT for Windows, but it doesn't distinguish between OS X and Linux. So we need another way, which we can get with this platform module. So we can say if platform.system. Now platform is another module we have to import. So again, we'll let PyCharm do that. You have to kind of experiment with it to see what it returns. But on OS X, it returns Darwin. On Linux, it returns Linux. And on Windows, it returns Windows. So that should be pretty easy. Let's say Darwin. If it's Darwin, we're going to do what we've already been doing. That was great. Otherwise, we want to come here and say else if it returns Windows, we'll say start. And else if it returns Linux, we'll say xdg-open. And finally, we'll do an else and say print, we don't support your OS. And we could even show it here. Like so. Now, I suppose spelling Darwin correctly would help, wouldn't it? Okay, so OS X, Darwin, Windows, Windows, Linux, Linux. Let's try it. Excellent. Here are our cats. Let's have a look. I are a Dune cat. I control the spice, the K cat, and so on. Now notice one of these is actually off. I know that one of these images actually is a GIF, not a JPEG. And apparently this little viewer doesn't understand it from the metadata in the header. It just looks at the extension. Whatever. There's not really a big problem. It's just we'd have to check what the file extension is when we save it. So pretty cool. We are able to use platform.sys to determine what subprocess to call.